fabulous person with us today that I'm excited to is in the same sort of network and of beautiful spiritual teachers. And so I'm really excited to introduce you to her. So she is covering an area of spirituality that I don't know how we haven't talked about this on Wisdom Soup yet, but I'm realizing we never have. And it seems like this massive oversight, but we've really never gone into Egyptology and all the stuff around Egypt. Like it's literally been, I mean, how many years have we been doing Wisdom Soup and we've never talked about it? And by the way, I should mention for those of you who are new to Wisdom Soup, welcome. This is our monthly group. We get together. We've been doing this for, I mean, I don't know, has it been a decade now? For a long time. And Wisdom Soup grew out of my own desire to find my peeps, to find people that I could connect with who were on a spiritual journey that I literally, none of my old friends were interested. So I just started it. I put a flag in the ground. I put an ad on Meetup. I rented a theater and like 25 people showed up and we've been going strong ever since. And with COVID, we went online and it actually has been beautiful because we've been able to include all kinds of people that couldn't come in person. So we're still doing it. And it's just an opportunity that for me, it allows me to continue to grow. And for all of us as a community where the concept of the name Wisdom Soup is that everybody gets to make their own soup, that we expose ourselves to wisdom, right? We open the door and allow new types of wisdom to come in. And then we get to use our discernment and decide, is this for us or is this not for us? Does this fit with me? Is this right for me right now? And so it's a way of just continuing to be open and to learn from amazing people, some of whom you may have already met and some of who are going to be new to you. So I'm glad you're here, really glad you're here. And I know you're going to love today's guest because she's very cool. And I'm grateful to Wendy and Kira for finding her for me because we all kind of share the duties of finding our speakers and Wendy and Kira found Patricia. And so I got the opportunity to catch up on her and learn about her. And that's when I realized, you know what? We have never talked about Egypt, and that is her area of expertise. So let me bring her in. Here we go. And now let me get Patricia. Okay, here we are. So welcome, Patricia. I'm so glad you're with us.
Thank you.
So you are a speaker, an expert. You lead retreats and tours to Egypt. So you have a deep history and a background with the symbology and the stories of ancient Egypt. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, that sums it up.
So, would you share with us what first drew you to Egypt?
Well, when I was very, very young, probably 8 or 9 years old, I just remember my dad used to have these big coffee table books, and Egypt was one of them. And just scrolling through the pages, it felt like it was home. I was just so drawn in. And then the National Geographics would come and they were filled with pictures of Egypt back in the day. I want to say how far back. I was obsessed. I would run out to the mailbox, which was about a half a mile away, just to when the National Geographics were supposed to come. So I knew from a very young age that I used to tell everybody, I'm going to Egypt one day. And then I'm going to live in Egypt one day. But I waited until I was in my late 40s before I heard the call. I was literally told, okay, it's time. And I didn't really waste any time. I didn't even have a passport at the time. I had traveled all over the States, but Egypt was my first large, big journey. And it was history from then. I was back a year later and the year after that. And not long after that, I was living here, married, and doing what I'm doing now. So, yeah.
So, were you of that age? When I was in elementary school, the King Tut's tomb was uncovered, and it was such a thing. Like that was, I mean, that was. I don't know if it was just in my world, like in my school, that everybody was talking about it, and everyone. And
All
then
the
Indiana
time.
Jones came
Yeah.
out. We all wanted to be archaeologists. Was that you too?
Oh, yeah, that was
Okay,
me.
all right.
That was my dream. But to be honest, I'm glad I didn't. I wanted to be, and my mother's like, no, nobody ever gets to work at the site. You end up as a curator in a museum or something like that. And so she talked me out of it. And in the end, because I do what I do and I'm alternative, I'm not in academia, so to speak.
Yes.
I respect academia, but I'm not in it. I have no checks and balances, no peer reviews. I can say what I want to, and I can explore concepts that they're not allowed to. So yeah, I'm really fortunate, and I'm so glad. Thank you, Mom.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it's amazing when you think about it.
So I would love to go there. So you started your pathway looking into like pulled to Egypt. I'm sure you started with all the stuff that was readily available, but somewhere along the way you took a left turn and started seeing it through new eyes. And what started that and and where did it take you?
Well, I had quite an interesting childhood. My mother came from a long line of sensitives from, the Scotland and England. And so we grew up, I was reading palms in grade school and, reading tarot and doing all of this. And by the time I was almost 20, I was astral projecting at will and just I was experiencing all of this. And so I already knew that what was written, what couldn't be true. I was always questioning everything from the minute I think I was born. And why am I here? And what is this? And and so I would explore everything from the sciences, literature, art, but mostly alternative things because anything mainstream didn't answer the questions I had in a way that made sense. And nobody
Mm,
would answer my questions when I'd ask about the contradictions. And so, yeah. And so when I came to Egypt for the first time, I came with a mind wide open, and the
wow.
experience was unbelievable. And I knew it was home, but it was like suddenly I had been, I just see visions and had all these experiences, but this was the first time I started sharing them, that I actually stepped out of myself and said, hey guys, this is what I'm seeing, this is what's happening. And we had so many amazing experiences, and I was just, that was it. I knew it had to
Wow.
be Egypt.
So I love the idea that you taking this left turn was born just out of your own noticing I mean, sure, there was sort of like, so they moved these big stones with slaves. Like I'm sure it was, maybe that was was it that or was it deeper stuff that you thought was missing?
Well, I was already going to conferences that explored alternative concepts. I was exploring, like I said, from childhood. I was reading Edgar Cayce when I was a kid. I mean, and just keep, you just keep going and exploring, and so I already, nothing sort of made sense. And actually, the first tour that I went on, I knew I had to go with people of like mind.
Yeah.
And this was back in 2005. That was my first journey. And I found this tour online. And the other thing is, I had to go inside the King's Chamber. I wasn't going to go on a tour and stand outside the pyramid and not experience what
Yeah.
it was like to go inside. And I found this tour called the Star Elders Tour. And when I looked deeper, it was Stephen Mailer led the tour, and he had written books with this man. His name is Abdel Hakim Alian, and he was known as the wisdom keeper, the indigenous wisdom keeper, or knowledge holder here in Egypt. And that just piqued my interest. And so I read the two books that Stephen wrote, but with Hakeem. And it sort of addressed all those things and all those questions. And was like, okay, this is it. And, the rest was history because I did go and meet him. And, it was funny. The first thing he did when I met him is Hakeem, is he came up and put his arms around me and said, welcome home. And,
Mm.
it was like a life changing moment, if you can
Wow.
imagine. Um,
Wow.
and then he did a lecture, and it was fabulous. And during the tour, he didn't come with us because he was in his, I think he was in his 80s at this point. Um, we were on a cruise, and we were talking about, different things. And Stephen asked, what, if you were going to do anything different on a tour, if we did another tour. And I said, well, why don't we ask Hakeem to come out of retirement and go on the whole tour? And they did.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
we went back, two full busloads of people, and Hakeem came on the tour, and it was so amazing to see. This man he changed the face of Egyptology because of his intuition and ability to read between the lines. I mean, one of the first things he said to me is, you know, what he had to do is unlearn everything he learned at university. I mean, he went through and got, you know, all the degrees in Egyptology and archaeology, but he said I had to unlearn all of that for the same reason. It didn't address what you're actually experiencing at the sites. And so it's all about opening your senses and the latent senses we forgot we have. And, you know, that piqued my interest because I was aware there's all this, you know, other ability to interact with our reality, and people weren't talking about it.
So this
Um,
is absolutely where I love to talk about this. That many people in the chat are wanting to know the name of the gentleman that you mentioned. Would you mind saying his name more slowly and so that everybody
of
could hear?
course. Most people know him as Hakim, Hakim, but
Okay.
his full name was Hakim Abdel Hakim Alyan. And yeah, he was well known here in Egypt. Pretty amazing. He passed away unfortunately in 2008, and I sort of, you know, with everything I learned from him, I kept coming back, by the way, and spent more time with him. With everything I learned from him, I knew I had to go deeper. I had to know why he said the things that he said.
Yeah.
And so when I moved here, I just spent all this time in the temples. And even to this day, and, you know, this is 17, 18 years later, I am looking at these sites and something pops, and the walls speak to you, the temple walls speak to you. And when you're ready, something will pop out. And I'll be like, wow, I get it. You know, and that's where Hakeem saw this, because I can see now how, you know, I can weave the story of all the things that he taught from all my experiences here. So yeah, it's been a great journey.
So it really struck me as you were talking about your experience of being in Egypt. And so that it was Hakeem and the last name. How do you spell the last name? Because people are very curious.
Aoyan is Awyan.
Thank you so much. Okay. So I understand that you have a really different perspective on the way that the way that the different structures in Egypt are structured, that each one is like an invitation to move through. And you said that because people will say, like, which one is the heart chakra and which one, and you understand it as that each one contains all of the chakras, and each and as you walk through it there's an invitation. So can you just explain that for us, please?
Wow. First of all, I want to say that every site was chosen for its energetic imprint. So almost all of them have running water underneath, because this is what makes it alive. And normally it's two crossings of water underneath the sites. And these crossings of running water create portals, vortexes.
Mm.
So here's a little science that creates this, literally this multidimensional field. And when you're standing in these areas, it's incredible. So these are strewn throughout the temple. If the tunnels or the waters weren't already there, they created channels of water to
Oh,
again enhance the energy of the site. These were living sites. Every temple is designed on the breath of life and the energy of your own body. So all the temples are designed with this, like almost these two serpent energies going through them, negative and positive energies, which they knew as Wadjet and Nekbet. It has to be the two ladies. This is the divine feminine currency, that which makes us alive. It's the breath. So this is literally, they're installing the breath of life in each temple, and it's built in the energy of our own body. And as you're walking through it, you're actually, when you're in the center, you're balancing the two sides of self. And then you can go into either side of the temple and you can focus on what that, you know, how they're presenting that particular part of the body, of the self, of consciousness itself.
so
Each
is
one,
it
go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry, is it, so you said it's the two sides, is it masculine and feminine, or is it two sides as in you said different parts of the body? Is it like by chakra or by organs, or in what way?
It's almost multidimensional in every way, if that makes sense. Yes, it's masculine, feminine, and even more importantly, it's left brain, right brain.
Mm.
So you've got, if you understand the difference between the two, you have left brain being analog. We're more left brain focused now. This is when we fall into form, you know, as we're basically liquid light falling into form. And when we fall into this form, we're in a containment. And in left brain thinking, we're more analytical. We are defining things. We want to define and measure. We want to put things in a little box, wrap it up, and give it a title. But when we're in right brain mode, which there was a whole civilization long before us that was, this is when you feel the currency. You're not necessarily feeling that you're a body. You feel the multidimension, the unity consciousness. You know that we're
Yes.
all one, but we're aspects of the one. And so they were aware of all of this, and their symbolism speaks to it in so many ways. And their goal was to literally balance the two into harmonic resonance, which is Ma'at. If you've seen the beautiful pictures of the winged goddess and she wears the feather, she is Ma'at. She is balancing the two hemispheres, the two sides of the body, the self. And when you're in harmonic resonance, then you are moving into multidimensional fields of consciousness.
So I love this. This is literally, you may not be familiar with my deepest healing program is called Soul Convergence, and it's about balancing the masculine and the feminine so that you can open to, yeah, all that is.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
So super cool. It's super cool that it's coming forward from, thousands and thousands of years
Oh,
ago. So you mentioned before about perception. You said that it's all about perception. And how does that fit into the experience that you have of Egypt?
perception. People come, I think one of the problems when you look at academia is they're looking at everything from this left brain consciousness of defining and measuring. And when we're looking at a culture that goes way back, dates thousands of years, they say, maybe 3 to 6,000 years. Well, we believe it's much longer.
Yeah.
And you're going back to a time when it was more right brained. And you can't imagine when you're in left brain focused consciousness how they can perceive the world in a different frame of mind. And if you can imagine perceiving a world where I like to relate it if you're familiar with well, I won't go into that, but it's the ability, like when you talk about the stars or astrology, it's like it's not that you're looking at it and saying, connecting the dots. You're actually part of the movement and the dance of the planets and the stars. You're the part of the dance of the waters on the earth. You know how the river breathes in and out. And this is how the symbolism develops. It develops as this knowing, this feeling that you're part of everything. And
Mhm.
then we come in with our left brain consciousness and we look at it and we say, oh, they were worshiping many gods. And it turns into something that's totally not what it was. Something so beautiful that you're a part of nature's cycles. And today we don't even have any reverence for nature's cycles. It's a whole
Yes.
different way of perceiving our own reality.
So if I had to understand, if I was trying to sum up in terms of like to get what what you took from this new way of looking at the temples, looking at the wisdom that came forward, that it's really about trying to understand. We right now we are in this very left-brained expression of consciousness. We're moving into this right-brained expression of consciousness. We're moving into this more balanced expression, and these pyramids and everything that was left behind is it there to guide us, to teach us, or to change us as we're moving into this new state of consciousness?
It can be all of those things. See,
Okay.
and that again is multidimensional thinking. There's symbolism. Each symbol doesn't mean just one thing. And this is where I struggle again with, your mainstream Egyptologists. I have a great respect for them, by the way, and I
Yeah.
study all the white papers because they've done the work for, long, long time, many years. But I also look at it from I look at it with an open mind, and with all the knowledge that I've come to learn, you can look at it and see, oh, it has all these different dimensions of meaning. And this is what Hakeem used to say. And through my studies and research, it's, you could say there's 7 meanings relating to our chakras, but our chakras are these different levels of perception. We can stay in our root chakra and take everything at face value. But as we begin to, and this is what's happening today, we are, as you said, moving into more right brain consciousness. We're being affected by a weakened magnetic field. We're getting more galactic and solar radiation. It's the Great Awakening. And we have all these, our spidey senses are being honed, and we're like, wow, we seem to know everything before it happens. This scares a lot of people that aren't aware. But for the rest of us, well, it can be a little scary as well. But yeah, it's this moment when we're beginning to experience something, and we're a little bit anxious now because it's a whole different, and the world is anxious because nothing is the way it was, and there's no going back.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely agreed. So looking at it, and one of the things I've heard you speak about, which I found very intriguing, was because the all of the pyramids and the temples have been around for so long that they represent levels of existence, right? That there is sort of like the people that existed 65,000 years ago, and then there's the people that existed 3,000 years ago. And that all, I heard you say that all of the writing that's on all the hieroglyphics and everything that we spend all this time talking about, that wasn't even there. Is that true?
That is true. The oldest part of Egypt, they didn't have a need for written or oral language. This doesn't happen until we literally fall into a belief that we are our bodies. That happens, in my opinion, age of Taurus. That was basically 6,000 years ago. We're at the onset, we're just
Yes.
beginning to lose sight of our unity consciousness. And this is when all the world's major religions say that civilization began. I call it
Yes.
the systemization of mankind. Now we're going into the digitalization of mankind. So these are things we have to look at. When we became, before the systemization or civilization, we all had a direct connection to source and all that
Yes.
exists. But the minute we start believing we are our bodies, Hakim would talk about the priests. He called them the priests of Amun, or he called them the Hanut or Hanuti. But these were the priests that developed the first harvest-less jobs. And all they had to do is convince us through agendas that create fear. They convince us that we are going to die, right? And if our heart doesn't weigh less than a feather, we're going to be eaten by the monster sitting over here, right? Well, what are the odds of your heart weighing less than a feather? But they were really talking about left brain and right brain. That those the scales, that's left brain and right brain consciousness, and it's talking about balancing them. And if your heart is lighter than a feather, it means you're light-hearted. You're not carrying all the burdens of your wounds and everything else. So
Yes.
if you really look at things differently, they're retaining information, but they're translating it in a way where they gain control. And this is what began 6,000 years ago, and it
Yeah.
just keeps
I,
going.
I love that as an explanation. So for people who are not familiar, when you say it began, so what she's talking about with the age of Taurus is that if you take what we call the precessional cycle of 24,000 years, you can break it down into 2,000-year chunks that follow the astrological wheel. So you can count back from we are now like in the age of Aquarius, coming out of the age of Pisces, and you can keep going back 6,000 years to get to the age of Taurus. And the age of Taurus would be associated with, Patricia, would you like to fill in the blanks?
Taurus itself is it was it my dad was a Taurus. He was a beautiful man. But Taurus is they're earthy. So they
Yeah.
love material things, good food, good wine. This is falling into form and loving being in body.
Yeah.
And this just makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes absolute sense. And that would be like there's nothing, I think there's nothing wrong with any expression, right? But it is
Yeah.
to become that embodied would then might love that experience, but then it would pull you away from the connection with all that is.
We
So it
choose
makes
it.
sense that we would,
I
yeah.
believe we choose it. Why wouldn't we want to be in body? Because out of body, we're just knowing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when we really fall into body, we become the breath. We're alive. We can
Mm-hmm.
perceive time and space
Yeah.
rather than just being in a place of no time, no space, but imagining. I call
Yeah.
it consciousness imagining rather than, actually getting out there and breathing and doing.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
feeling and
two different
touching. Yeah.
ways to experience life.
So some people were asking how would they have communicated prior to language? I'm assuming telepathy. Is
Think about left brain and right brain consciousness as heart based right brain
Mm-hmm.
and mind-based left brain. So
Mm-hmm.
if we go back into our hearts, where do you think that's where your intuition comes from? Your gut, your heart. Your heart knows. Now, I always tell people, follow your feelings, follow your heart, because your mind will always get you into trouble if you give it too much attention. We need
Right.
both. We definitely need both. But the heart, if you know from the heart, like the phone rings and you know it's your mother, how do you know that? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're connected. You're connected to your mother. Well, as our spidey senses are getting more, beautifully honed, we're beginning to know more and more. Consider a time when we just knew. I knew what you were thinking before you said anything. So that's a time when you have to be at peace. That's a
Yeah.
time when you can't tell a lie because everybody knows you're lying. And you can see that's where we're moving now. These people that are highly intuitive, you can tell when somebody's lying to you. You can tell. You I used to get impatient with people that couldn't spit out. I was like, spit it out, tell me, because I already knew what they were going to say before they said it. And I say that tongue in cheek, but this is what I'm talking about. So it's a time we don't need written and oral language because we already know. But when
Yeah.
we begin to separate from each other and we see, oh, you're you and I'm me. Well, think about Gemini. That's the twins, right? The
Mm-hmm.
twins are male and female in Egypt, Shu and Tefnut. And that's literally, you go from Cancer, where you're the yin yang in one big containment, you're
Yeah.
both, we're all both masculine and feminine. There's only 2% difference. But suddenly in Gemini, and I'm talking again ages, in the age of Gemini, because you go backwards through the wheel in precession. So we kind of went from Cancer to Gemini. That was the split into male and female. Oh, you're a man and I'm a woman. And then we go into Taurus where we're totally in body, and that's when we can be controlled by agendas that create fear. But if we know there's nothing to be afraid of. So this is the funny thing, but I do believe we choose this because we're experiencing and learning. It's called the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And it's explained in the temples in Egypt. It's the story of Egypt is
So
taking this
how is it, how
hero.
do you see it in the temples? Because you're not looking at the hieroglyphs when you're talking, when you're saying that the temples explain it. What are you
I
seeing?
I do know a lot of the hieroglyphs.
Yeah.
And if you've been here as long as I have and been in the temples as many times as I have, but I see it also in the symbolism. There's a temple called the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, and as you walk in, there's a huge gate when you walk into the complex. And when you look up at this gate, at the underneath the gate, there's a big lintel, and on it you see the underbelly of a winged scarab. And Hakim said, when you see that, it's the only place in Egypt that you see it. And he said, this means you're entering a place that has all the answers to all the mysteries of the universe. And so that's
Mm.
all I needed to hear. So I spent a great deal of time in Dendera. And when you look up, there's a ceiling in the first hypostyle hall when you walk in, and it shows you all the zodiac signs. And then it has Osiris on the one side, and he's taking off. He's actually the fool in the tarot deck. Tarot, of course, came from Egypt, but he takes that first step out of balance. It's 23.5-degree angle. And that's when we literally fall into form, and he's taking that step. He then becomes mummified. He's wrapped in his own wings. And that's our containment, right? So yeah, it's fascinating. And then, I'm not going to go into it now, but it takes you through everything and how the whole dynamic works. The
Wow.
cycles. It's absolutely incredible. And it speaks about what's happening now. I saw it on that ceiling before I even knew about half the things that I know now, but you don't find it. You're not taught in school. You don't see it in history books. If you
Hmm.
don't experience it or hear it from somebody, you don't know that some of these things exist. So
Right.
it's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's actually very interesting for me because I've been working on a book that I've been channeling from Isla, who is the mother of creation. That's the name that she's been using for herself. And there's so much overlap in these themes. And I'm excited when the book comes out, I'm gonna have to send you a copy because I think you're
Oh,
gonna love
I
it.
love that.
Because there's so many places where you can see alignment and it's just coming at it, speaking truths from another perspective that which is, so it's very fun for me to hear where you're finding these truths, and written in buildings that have been there for 65,000 years, just so amazing.
What kept
So
me here for 18 years.
yeah. So for you personally, going to Egypt, have you like and I understand some of these temples have been designed as an energetic container to actually have an effect on your energy while you're there. Have you ever experienced that yourself or seen anything like that for another
Oh,
person?
yes, it absolutely happens. People change. I've changed because of all the time I've spent in the temples. That's what they were designed to do. They're literally designed, and so it's not just the energetic footprint of the land, but it's actually the type of stone and the sacred geometry of how they lay out the site. And as you're walking in it, it is interacting with you. Every shape, every stone, every angle has an effect on us. And when they do it in perfection, we're walking, if you're unaware, it's still going to happen. You are still going to be transformed. I tell this to people because, it's funny. I watch it and people keep coming back to travel with me. And it's so funny as each time they come, their experience goes deeper and, they begin to see things they hadn't seen before. And of course, this has happened to me as well. So yeah, they're designed to interact with them. And many of the spaces, each temple also has a different archetypal, like it's almost like they can awaken a different sense within you.
Mm.
Hakeem said at one time we had 360 senses. But what that means to me, that's full scale perception, you know, full scale conscious awareness with, the way the Egyptians spoke about source, they believed in the one God, but it breathes out into individuated aspects of itself. And these are the Neteru. And the Neteru, it's really where we get our word nature. They weren't gods and goddesses as we perceive gods and goddesses. They revered them as forces of nature, and each one has a different archetypal energy as a force of nature in this perception of reality. And the mythology that they play out tells us the story of us and the cycles.
Mm. And how many are there? Is it the of those uh I'm sorry, say what they're called again. I'm sorry.
Netters,
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 thank you.
yeah,
Netters.
yeah, many. He said 360, but
Okay.
as time moves forward, it's like everything is a breath. That's the foundation of everything. So
Hmm.
if you take a breath, think about you're in your heart and you breathe out, right? You're breathing out into separation consciousness. So you're
Hmm.
breathing out into all these individuated aspects. But then there's a stop, there's a moment of silence, and then you inhale back to center. So that's moving out into left brain consciousness. And then you inhale back to the heart, which is right brain consciousness. And that's the foundational breath of everything. And so
Hmm.
this is how literally the temples work as the breath. In Egypt, it's explained by a symbol, one of the most ancient symbols called the Sima Tawi. And every temple is structured as a Sima Tawi, and it's the breath of life.
How is it? What is the stima to we? And what is that? What does that look like?
It's basically like a T, so
Okay.
you have like a Tau Tawi, right? And you have a lotus on one side and the papyrus on the other. Lotus is the feminine, papyrus is the masculine. And they represent the lungs, the trachea, and the voice box. So, of course, your neck, right, ruled by Taurus, is where you fall into and out of resonance. The head is always considered like that oneness, that heaven, that's that higher self, the pineal, right?
Yeah.
But everything else underneath your neck is the duality. So it's all, this is the breath in and out. So,
Yeah.
when you're falling into fear and anger, you fall back down to your root chakra. And then as you begin to come back into oneness and you transmute your polarity, you're literally breathing up into oneness.
So I love that. And I have gotten so many messages about the throat and that the throat chakra being a pivot point and being how important that is. It's really amazing that that's showing up in the temples as well. So when you go into these structures, is there a method? So one time I was in Ireland and I went to go visit an ancient site, and it's still an active healing site. But there's a very specific process you're meant to use when you interact with it in order to have the experience. Is that true with like with these any of the sites? Are they still active as healing sites, or sites that potentially open your consciousness?
They are still active. Now, it's when you're talking like the pyramids, it has been so they basically taken all the casing stones off. The whole design has been
Yes.
destroyed, but it still
Yeah.
hasn't the site has an energy not as powerful as it once was, but it's
Yeah.
still there. There's still water underneath. There's still it's a geopathic stress zone. There's fault lines, and this is all the energy that is positive in small doses. You don't want to live on the plateau because it would be negative in large doses.
Mm,
Um, it's this kind of energy can be very interesting. If you're not familiar with geopathic stress, you can look that up because you'll find that at a lot of sacred sites. Um, but it's very powerful energy. It's the energy of fertility. It makes the site very fertile. So yeah, it's interesting, and they literally harness these geopathic stress zones. Göbekli Tepe is another one, right at where two like plates, land plates
hmm.
come together, creates this huge fault line. And of course, it's, very energetic. Volcanoes, very, fertile. The ancient cultures would live in these areas because, first of all, there'd be lots of animals and plant life and things to eat. And so hunter-gatherers, you think, how did hunter-gatherers build Göbekli Tepe? Well, it's because they went to a place. They literally followed the song lines, these lines of
Mm,
fertility on the earth to the places where everything was so fertile and rich, and it was a beautiful place to live.
yes. So have you seen any evidence that there is a like any kind of a process you're meant to use to enter? Like if you're going through the temple, is there anything like do you just walk through it and you receive the benefit, or are you meant to stop in certain places or go in a certain order, anything like that?
Well, this is where I go back to there's no have tos in
Mm-hmm.
spirituality. That's something that's developed in left brain consciousness. Oh, you have to do this. And, after we descended into this idea and the priests gained so much power, they literally shave their heads and had to purify themselves, and they go into the temple. Do you really need to purify yourself to connect with source?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe so. Do we have to follow a set of instructions to heal or to heal someone? No,
Mm-hmm.
we don't. That's all left brain consciousness. And I
Mm-hmm.
think now we're starting to, we're looking for things to tell us what comes next, but why don't we start feeling what's going to come next? We have that ability. It's the same thing with the temple. I like for people to just feel their way through them. I'll spend time showing people what's there and explaining it, and, to understand what they're walking on. In every temple you enter, and as you go in, you're in this big courtyard that was open to the public, but as they began to separate everything and separate you from your God, right, which is the Holy of Holies, they had places where the public could no longer go. So the public could only come for the festivals, and bring money, right? But
Mm-hmm.
as you go further into the temple, that's when the initiates would be able to go, depending on their level of ability. And then the Holy of Holies was only for the high priest because only
Mm-hmm.
he could withstand the power. But before that, it was open for everyone. And so when you enter the temple, as you're going through all these chambers, you'll notice that the floor keeps rising and the ceiling gets lower. And when you get to the Holy of Holies, you're in the place where heaven meets earth
I
and
love it.
everything becomes one.
Love it.
Knowing that, if you just have that thought in your head as you're walking through and feeling your way
Mhm.
through with your heart, then you get to that space and you can feel the sacredness and how
Yes.
powerful it is. And you just sink into that feeling and that expression.
Yeah.
And of course, the sight energies help you with that if you
Mhm.
take the time. I always say, put the cameras down and experience
Mhm.
with your senses, any senses that you can open senses. See
Yeah.
what is you're not being told.
I think that's a great suggestion in general, right? Just put the cameras down and be present and be in the now,
Yeah.
and which helps us to get more into that higher state of consciousness.
Well, we're
So,
looking through a lens. Why would we want to look through a lens when
yeah,
we're here? We came all the way to Egypt.
yeah,
Yeah, we don't, pictures will be available. You'll
yeah.
find pictures, but take the time to, that's one of the most amazing things you can have in your life is this experience in some of these sacred, and that's worldwide, not just Egypt. You
Yeah.
have sacred sites in your own backyard. They're everywhere. And you can, if you learn to feel them, you'll find them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, so what do you think about they just did this LiDAR, deep, some sort of super special X-ray and found these unexpected structures way deep down underneath. Was it underneath one of the pyramids? Is that where it was?
It's underneath, yeah, the pyramid, Sphinx. It's very controversial subject, especially
Mm,
for those of us. I've been down many levels underneath the plateau, and it literally, it's like people get out of the buses and they literally just look up and they're looking at the big structures. And I always say the biggest show is happening underneath because there's a whole city underneath of chambers and wells and running water and
wow.
so many things. And you can go down into some of them, but I've been down 4 levels and could look down at a fifth. So but nothing is, I think my biggest problem with how, when they came out with this information is they used AI pictures. And there is nothing that looks like the perfection of I don't believe underneath these pyramids. There
Okay.
can't be. There's fault lines all over the plateau. It's if you understand the geology of the site and what's happening underneath, you can't even imagine anything so perfectly structured. However, I do believe that they're finding patterns of energy, like because the site is chosen for that reason because
Mm-hmm.
it's electric, it's electromagnetic, it's with this powerful swirling energy. This is what they're harnessing. So I believe they are seeing something spectacular. I'm just not sure that it's these beautiful finely cut you know chambers.
Columns of, right. Interesting.
Anything's possible, and like everyone else, I would love to know, but I have my doubts, I'll just say that.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Very interesting. I also saw an interesting program where a guy talked about the tomb of Osiris, that it was this deep, 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 it's like nothing on the surface. You go down and you go down and you go down multiple levels and you get down to this incredible space. I don't even know how many hundreds of, like, a mile down, some incredible
No, it's not
distance.
that far.
Okay,
No,
it's
I
far
think,
down
yeah,
there. Like, it looked
yeah,
scary
no.
deep. Like I say,
It
scary deep.
it's scary for many because you go down on like a wide. It used to be really crude, but these like ladders, they're just metal ladders that you're going
Wow.
down. And that one time they used to shake back and forth. But it is 3 levels, and you can climb down. And the bottom level was at one time spectacular because it was like it was. It's a place that water comes in and covers the area, but it had like these 4 big pillars and this big box, and unfortunately, the Romans came and destroyed it, from what I read. The Romans destroyed a lot of things in Egypt, including the labyrinth at Hawara, which is another incredible site. There is definitely this huge labyrinth underneath the ground that was, as Herodotus once said, more spectacular than any of the pyramids. I mean, yeah, just
Wow.
incredible. So there's a lot here, and so many things that have not been discovered yet that it's still under the sands. Um, so yeah, it's curious. When I first got here, I had I thought all these thoughts of all the things that could be there. And then the more I learned, what I learned, I think is even more spectacular. What they knew, about who we are, where we come from, and how we go through these cycles and what everything, that to me is incredible.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think I need to see spaceships under the ground or, anything like that to make me think it's anything, because I think if you understand consciousness itself,
Hmm.
everything and nothing exists.
Hmm.
Um, it's sort of like the way they describe this world is it's all waters. We have the earthly waters and the heavenly waters, and one mirrors the other. And anything we can imagine, we can create when we're in that perfect state of, conscious awareness or perception. It's just believing with your heart that you can. It's that inner knowing.
Mm.
And I believe we do that. We take this hero's journey and we learn that eventually we can manifest once we transmute our inner polarity and yeah, accept ourselves for who we are.
That is the key, right? Isn't it? To balancing, to achieving that balance and that opening is accepting ourselves
Mhm.
as who we are.
And
And
embracing all parts of ourselves.
yes,
It's all me, and not one is bad and one is good. It just
right.
is. It just is.
Yeah. Yeah. I was even thinking about that this morning about my garden. And I wrestle sometimes with like I grow vegetables. And when there are vegetables, there are also slugs. And,
Yeah.
and I have gone through the like, okay, do I live in, do I make space for the slugs and live in, but then if I do that, they literally destroy the plants. So then I was like, well, am I the protector of the plants and I will remove the slugs and put them in the city's compost bin? What do I do with the slugs? And then I realized I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, well, what if the world was a manifestation of me because I am the create everything is each of us, right? Each of us is manifesting our reality and I cut my hair, right? And I cut I do my nails and I do the things I groom however I want to groom my physical body. If the world is an expression of my physical body, then it makes sense that I could also groom my garden and decide, well, there's too many slugs in my garden, just like my nails have gotten too long, time to cut them. And and that it is my nails are alive, just like the slugs are. So it was an interesting thought this morning. It's the first time I thought about it that way. It was anyways, just this idea of the oneness and we really are everything. It's interesting
I
tying
love
that back to
that.
the water, like you said.
I love that you shared that because that is the more you understand, I have those struggles all the time. It's like, oh, is it right to do this or that? Because yeah, I don't want to step on any toes. You practice compassion and all those beautiful things, and everything has a right to exist.
Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, the beautiful.
So in your own journey so far with this experience, is there an experience that you had along the way, maybe when you were in Egypt or even when you're not in Egypt, something that for you was like a mind-blowing a mind-blowing, whether it be a spectacular uh uh you know experience of the other side, anything like that happened to you while you've been involved in this line of work?
Oh my, so many times. I've learned to accept it as that is more real. You feel like you're walking between the worlds, and having those kind of experiences seems almost more real than living in this other world that you have to follow all the rules and to be part of the system, whatever that is. I struggle with that, just being systemized in any way. Because yeah, I think we're meant to be living expressions. But yes, you asked the question. I always have strange experiences, especially when I'm at the sites a lot, and I'll have experiences where I'll go into the astral. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I have these mind-boggling, beautiful astral experiences that answer questions for me, or, it's just like one time I had this experience that, there's a big eclipse coming up in Egypt next year on August 2nd, and it's going to be the longest
When is it?
basically
Which one?
moment of totality. It's going to be right over Luxor. It's a solar eclipse happening on August 2nd, 2027. And it's going to be 6 minutes long, this moment of totality, and it's going to be huge. And for years, it's been like, oh, I want to go. So, at any rate, I had this experience where I was in this astral state, and I got out of a car. I was with friends, and I look up and I see I jump out of the car to see the eclipse. And as the sun and the moon, day and night, masculine, feminine, come together, I suddenly was pulled up. It was sort of like it was pulling me up into the oneness of it. And I was
Mm.
like, wow, And as I'm going, it was so freeing. And then I look back to see, why aren't my friends coming? Why did they stay in the car? And as I came out of it, I thought, for all everything that I talk about and say, and how to let go, and I looked back. I mean, I even speak about the whole Lot's wife thing, where she looks back
And to
and
kill
goes,
herself.
I know, and
Right.
there I am. And it was funny because a year later I had the experience again, and I said, "You're not going to get me this time." And then I came right out of it. But I have funny experiences like that. And another one where I was in this astral state and I'm standing at this big top of a portal. Like, if you ever see the pictures of the gods looking down on earth, but it wasn't the gods, it was all these like faceless, nameless people, and it seemed like silky robes or something, and we're all standing around. And all of a sudden, one of the figures drops. I just sort of feel it, and I kind of look to my side, and he falls down, and I hear him look up and say, "Why do I have to forget who I am?" And you hear this booming voice from above saying, "Because it would be too painful to know how powerful you are
Mm.
when you jump and fall into form." And I thought, wow, it was a beautiful way to express it. And I'm not saying for me, these astral experiences are more like teachings for
Yes.
me, that I'm
Yes.
experiencing something like this that I've been thinking about. So it was very interesting, and it made me think about, and I have those kind of experiences all the time, which I love. Or waking up in the
Beautiful.
middle of the night when suddenly a question I was thinking about, I can see the vision and it gives me the answer, something within the symbolism or the mythology, sort of like the figures come alive and I can understand the expression of what it means.
Yes. Yeah. That's wonderful. That sounds
Mm.
beautiful. So I wonder now that you have this, you've really learned and absorbed this deep understanding of the shift of consciousness that we're going through with your background with Egypt. Is there any practice, what practices do you use yourself to try to merge or blend into that to achieve that higher state of consciousness? Is there anything that you are doing? And is it when you're in Egypt or is it when you're home?
It's wherever I am. I go into these states of, you can call it meditation, but it's sort of like a connection. I'm always asking these questions and the answers will come to me. And, I'm noticing that there is a huge need right now for everyone to be very clear, to become really clear about everything that they're experiencing. We need to be totally authentic and honest,
Mm.
because we're literally moving into a time when we don't even know what's real or not.
Yeah.
AI has taken over social media. It's everywhere. Our world, we've known, many of us have known that you can't trust, you know, what we're being told, no matter who's telling it, and we're lying to ourselves. We become so used to it that we lie to ourselves on a regular basis. And it has dawned on me that the only way to move forward in this moment is to be completely honest, completely authentic, and make that this has to be my focus with
Yes.
everything that I do. Whoever I'm talking to, I have to come from the heart. And I think this is how we can move through, and then the doors open.
Yeah.
And this is what I've been experiencing. As long as I stay in my heart, as long as I'm not afraid to be completely honest, to show my vulnerabilities, to show my failings, it's like all of a sudden, you just have this greater ability to notice what's always been there. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
You know what I love about that is it brings us full circle. I think also back to the throat chakra, which is
Mhm.
about expression. How are we expressing ourselves? Are we expressing ourselves from the heart or from the head? And is it that authenticity that with all of our foibles and our vulnerabilities, right? Yeah. And self-acceptance, self-love, and expressing that out into the world through the throat chakra. Yeah. So cool. Wow, I know we could go so much deeper, Patricia. I wish we had lots of more hours to talk.
Okay.
So how can people find you and work with you?
I have a website. It's called Horus Rising, just
And that's
horusrising.com.
Horace, Horus Rising.
Horus
Okay.
Rising,
Oh, thank you.
Rising. Yeah, Horus Rising. And I show my events there, and I do have some blog articles. I haven't written anything recently. I have a YouTube channel, and that's called Horus Rising Productions. And I started a couple of years ago. I have a business partner, and we just started doing it. And I'm trying, everybody asks me, have I written books?
Yeah.
And,
That was one of the
during,
questions in the comments. People were wondering. Yeah.
well, during the pandemic, I sat down. Now, Hakeem had once said the time for books was over, and that did sit with me because it makes sense, because we are literally transforming our past, present, and future in every given moment. So, there is no time and space. So we are always transforming. And as, we expand our consciousness, the story changes. Like I said,
Mhm.
all those different dimensions of meaning. So, but I sat down and I wrote 600, people have been begging me. So I wrote 600 pages during the pandemic. And what the problem is, I couldn't find a linear way to
Oh,
put multidimensional information into that package. And
yes.
so I thought, let's do a YouTube channel where I can just go on and say what I want.
Yeah.
And we started with lectures and things like that. And I think we're going to change the format and just do some conversation and go deeper. But yeah, it's
Wonderful.
the best format for me because, everything keeps changing and we keep changing and growing and we can't stay in a fixed spot anymore. I think the only constant is change now.
Yeah, we are changed. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Patricia. I want to send out the special reminder to our Soul Society that we're now going to go in to do our special session with Patricia next. But for our Wisdom Soup community, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Patricia, for sharing such beautiful wisdom, such a cool thing. Like I said, I can't believe we haven't talked about, but you know what? It was waiting for you. We were waiting for you to come and share this awesome perspective. And now we all want to go to Egypt. So I'll see you guys there.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys
Uh,
have a beautiful day. And I'll see you next month, second Thursday of the month for our next Wisdom Soup. Bye bye. Thank you.